Okay, this Six Nations is possibly the hardest to predict. Now, obviously, if you go down online and look at the bookmakers, you'll see the odds for who's going to win. England, Ireland, and France are probably your top three for winners, and some bookmakers might put Ireland as the favourites, others England, and one or two may even say France. Because the French are so unpredictable, we don't know which French team is going to turn up, partly to do with their disruptive build-up with, obviously, quarantine issues and the French government only giving the say-so on Tuesday. So days before the tournament's due to start, the French government have finally said yes, the French team can play. There was a big question mark over this tournament. Italy is obviously the post-Sergio Parisse era. Wayne Pivac in Wales, he's a coach under a lot of pressure right now. And, well, they beat their Italians in the last game. They played in the autumn. They were struggling at times in that game. And their autumn series, the autumn international tournament, wasn't great. Their form coming into this year hasn't been great under Wayne Pivac. It is obviously a massive transition period for Wales as well. And Scotland, the ultimate enigma with the Finn Russell situation. It's going to be very interesting to see if that relationship between coach and player has been restored with Gregor Townsend and Finn Russell. But on the whole, because of the disruptive build-up to this tournament, and with a lot of off-field issues predating COVID with this tournament as well, it's going to be interesting to break it down. Now, Italy are most likely going to finish last and get the wooden spoon again, but it's the post-Sergio Parisse era, and they have got some very good players. It's all about getting that 80-minute performance together. They can do it. It's whether they can do it more than once. I can see Italy upsetting possibly Wales in this tournament, for example. But it's most likely they finish last. I would love to see Italy get off the bottom of the Six Nations table and another team get the wooden spoon. Highly unlikely. But they do have some talented players within their playing group, so keep an eye out for some good performances from individual players. But overall, they still lack that next step. Scotland, the Finn Russell situation, and their form away from Murrayfield. That is the bugbear. Yes, he's back in the fold, which I think is an important decision that has been made, is to re-include him in the side, and whether Gregor Townsend and Finn Russell have fully repaired the breach in their relationship, yet to be seen. On his day, Finn Russell is brilliant, but at the same time, he can also be equally frustrating. And in the same game, he can be inconsistent. He can read the game very, very well, and he's very, very creative. His execution goes missing, or he makes the wrong play. So he is an enigma. There's no question he's a very talented fly half or inside centre, depending on where the coach wants to play him. There's no question on that. The question is his execution and getting it right. But when he gets it right, Scotland look very, very good in attack. When they get it wrong, they look calamitous in attack, and then defensively there are concerns there. So they are a dark horse, and they are also an enigma. They could get the wooden spoon. They could win the whole bloody thing. You just don't know with them. Wales under Wayne Pivac, that is a coach under a lot of pressure. The form coming in, even with the Autumn Nations Cup, isn't Wales' form, to be honest. This is not the Welsh team that won the Six Nations a couple of years ago. Their form since Warren Gatland has departed and Wayne Pivac has come in has gone off a cliff. There's no other way to describe it. If you look at the win percentages, it's different. They are a team in transition. This could be the tournament that they turn things around, or it could be the tournament where Wayne Pivac is shown the door. Personal opinion there. Yes, having that long time with Warren Gatland as coach, most of these players, apart from the Scarlets players, haven't played under anyone different at international level. Wayne Pivac obviously haven't coached the Scarlets. They obviously have a working relationship with him, those players that have been coached by him before. The other players, it's not working. Or it hasn't been working. But this is the tournament where this could be turned around. And if you're a Welsh fan, you obviously want the form to turn around. Opinions divided on Wayne Pivac, and is he the right man for the job? Should someone else have the job instead? That debate's going to rage on. Performances will be what is key here. It's whether they get wins. It's not how they win. It's just that they get the wins, and the win column is much stronger than the lose column. At the moment, the lose column is dominating the headlines when it comes to Wales, and it doesn't matter how you win as long as you win. Plain simple. The French, they're completely unpredictable, and because of their disruptive build-up with the French government only giving the say-so for the French to travel and take part in the tournament and have the quarantine rules relaxed to allow the Six Nations to take place, that may galvanise this squad, or it could have completely thrown a lot of their young players off, because they are a very young team these days, and could derail them. But looking at it, the French are so unpredictable, and that's what makes them fun to watch. You don't know which French team is going to turn up, but the way they've been playing in attack in the last 18 months or so, is refreshing. It's a return to the flair days of the 90s, which was, I think, the best French teams were in the 90s, personal opinion. Their defence is getting better as well. Their issue is penalty count. That is their big bugbear, is players getting sin-binned, players reacting, giving away cheap penalties, foul play, you name it. Whatever is a negative about getting yellow cards and penalties, the French seem to shoot themselves in the foot with their discipline. But in an attacking sense, when they're on form and they're throwing it around, their handling skills from 1 to 15 are second to none. They are a very entertaining team in attack. It's defensively and decision making in defence, and keeping the penalty count down. Their problem. Ireland, they've had some squad withdrawals. Paul O'Connell has been added to the coaching lineup. That could be a very interesting to see how that plays out. But they have had some player withdrawals this week. New players have been brought into the squad. They're also a squad, I think, in a little bit of a transition. Andy Farrell's been there a while now, and he was part of the coaching setup before he got the full-time job, so it's not as if it's a complete change with Wales's case, with Wayne Pivac just being put in there and Warren Gatland leaving. So there's a bit of continuity there, but the game plan hasn't changed much. Now, you need to be a bit more adaptable, and that could be Ireland's problem, is they're not adaptable enough under certain situations. They're a little bit stereotypical in their play. It's an Ireland style. You sometimes need a plan B or a plan C and a little change up to attack and defence. The Irish are a solid side, but they're not quite of the team that won a couple of years ago. I think they have taken a step back, or other teams have just improved a bit more than them. But on their day and given a good run of form, that could change their fortunes around a bit, and they could set on the next 5-10 year cycle, because I do think the Irish could be everyone's second favourite team. I think the Irish could not necessarily get a Grand Slam. I don't think that's on the cards. I don't think this year's a Grand Slam year for any team. Ireland are, in my view, joint favourites alongside England and France. Personal opinion. I think the French are so unpredictable. That's their strength. The Irish have that winning mentality and are still a pretty top side. England, well, yes, they've had, I think, better form going into this. The Saracens situation with some of the key players playing in the Championship, lower level of rugby, lower intensity, that could have a massive impact, especially with key players like Itoje and Farrell, for example, still being Saracens players, but they are playing that lower level of opposition and they're playing that lower standard of rugby. I think that's going to have an impact. And again, with Eddie Jones and England, they haven't cured the penalty problem, and that is another weakness for England, is they can be one-dimensional, much like Ireland at times. They can be very easily sussed out by a pretty good defence. And the penalty count for England, again, is head-scratchingly far too high, and has been for a significant period of time. Now, if you go by form coming into this tournament, yes, they are favourites, but they shouldn't be automatically. That doesn't mean they're going to win the tournament. How they go about it is they've got to keep the penalty count down. They have to, and they have to be a bit more dynamic in attack if they are to win the title. But I can see too many, I wouldn't say laziness, but they're too structured. Sometimes you need that little bit of flair and that little bit of a change of things, where you have that unstructured play, that off-the-cuff play to unlock defences. They can be just ruck it up, a couple of times, a couple of hit-ups and kick. Hit-ups, kick, and they can become very one-dimensional. Just look at the Rugby World Cup final a couple of years ago. It became so predictable how they were playing that an average South African side battered them on the scoreline. There is no other way to describe it. They need to be a little bit 2-3-dimensional. They need to have that extra layers to their play. That is a bugbear. And their penalty count will frustrate me. I wouldn't be surprised if the penalty count is still in the double figures for England. They're one of the teams that seems to have a poor disciplinary record. So it's open-ended. I haven't really said that team is definitely favourite. I would say there's three sides at the top that you could say all of them could be favourites in their own right, and they have more than enough tools at their disposal to win a Grand Slam. And then you've got teams which have had very disrupted build-ups and poor form and issues with players, and then there's Italy. And they're in a transition period post Sergio Parisse. So I think all 6 teams have their weaknesses and their strengths. And with the disrupted build-up with the pandemic, it's going to be a leveller, I think. And with the weather conditions not actually being great at the moment in northern and Western Europe, there's been a lot of winter storms, it's heavy pitches. That means tough handling conditions. That means it could be very stop-start games, which some teams like Italy, they like it broken up like that. They like it stop-start. The French, they want the ball in hand. They want to throw it around. They want good running. So the conditions may not suit the French. Scotland, again, the Finn Russell situation, how is that going to work with Gregor Townsend now that he's back in the squad? I mean, it's a big boost for the Scottish that they've got another fly half in there, even though Hastings is a pretty adequate deputy, but he plays in a similar style, and then I think every Scottish fly half plays this unstructured style. And as Gregor Townsend said, he likes the disorganised chaos of their attack. At the same time, that is also one of their biggest weaknesses. If their hand skills let them down, then it's on their defence, and their defence isn't good enough. Wales under Wayne Pivac, this could be the tournament when they turn it around and get some solid form, because they're very inconsistent coming into this and their form isn't great. Ireland and England can be one-dimensional at times, but they are juggernauts in the sense that they just keep winning games. So it's an interesting one. It's very open-ended. I'm not going to put a prediction on who's going to come first and who's going to come last. I think it's too difficult to call. Italy are most likely going to get the wooden spoon, but if some teams go off to a poor start with the disruptive build-up, and you never know. So it's very open-ended. We'll have to see what happens. But thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts below. Where do you think teams will finish, and how entertaining will the rugby be? I think this weekend the weather's going to have a big part to play in the games. I think with snow and sleet and freezing rain forecast in northern and western Europe, I think the weather is going to have a massive impact on how these games play out. So it could be down to the team that makes the fewest errors with the ball. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.